Hey guys, and welcome back to Monka, where stuff ensues, but a couple of days ago I beat a video game. I kind of want to talk about it because there's some kind of lingering thoughts on my mind in relation to the game, but on Monday I beat Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion, a really long name. I specifically beat the Nintendo Switch version. Crisis Core Reunion came out in December of 2022, pretty much for every platform. PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, came to PC via Steam, came to Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and of course it came to the Nintendo Switch as well. Now this is a remake of the original Crisis Core, which came out on originally the PSP. Crisis Core Reunion is specifically a remake. It's not like a full overhaul. As I understand, it's pretty much like the original game. It's just got updated graphics, probably updated music and voice actors as well, but the game serves as a prequel to Final Fantasy VII. About 10 chapters long. Doing about 55% of the side missions took me about 23 hours. So it's decent in length, to be honest. It's actually a pretty fair length, all things considered. It's not too long, but the long and the short of my opinion of this game is that it's pretty decent, honestly. I enjoyed my time with it. It kind of made me want to play Final Fantasy VII again, which I've already played it, so I don't want to play it again until, like, you know, all three parts of the remaster come out. But I enjoyed Crisis Core Reunion. It's worth mentioning I never played the original one. Also, in relation to Final Fantasy VII in general, I played the original Final Fantasy VII. I have not played the remake yet. Now, in terms of the graphics are something I usually don't like to talk about, but in relation to at least the Switch, it's a decent looking game on the Switch. Not amazing or anything, but obviously that's just to be expected with the Switch. Now, with the graphics being pretty decent as well, the frame rate holds up, which is always appreciated. I can only recall maybe a few times when the frame rate dipped within the 23 hours that I played it. Otherwise, it ran perfectly fine, and I very much appreciate that. So in terms of the graphics, it looked pretty good, and it ran pretty consistently at a pretty consistent frame rate that was good, about probably say 30 frames, maybe it was 60, I can't really tell, but it ran well and it looked fine, so I can appreciate that for a Switch port. Now, in terms of music and voice actors, in terms of music, all the music that is specific to Crisis Core is pretty decent. I would say none of it really stands out or is like crazy amazing, but I mean, it all does its part and it's fine. In terms of music that is remastered from Final Fantasy VII for Crisis Core, it is actually pretty good. That's of course to be expected because Final Fantasy VII is filled with bangers, so everything they took from Final Fantasy VII and put in Crisis Core that they remade was just great. I mean, like battle theme, victory theme, all the music that they took from Final Fantasy VII is of course a banger. It's Final Fantasy VII music, so of course it's going to be good. And of course, hearing some of those themes from Final Fantasy VII and songs from Final Fantasy VII remastered sounded really good, and I could really appreciate that. Now, in terms of voice actors, I played this game with Japanese dubs. In terms of pretty much all the side characters, they all do their part as voice acting. I would say none of them do amazing jobs, but they all do their part as voice actors nonetheless, and they play their role. Now, in terms of the main character, which is Zack, his Japanese voice actor is really, really good. The voice actor really brings out Zack's character and all of like Zack's emotions and all the conflicts that he faces throughout the story. So I feel like in terms of voice actors, most of the side characters and just pretty much every voice actor besides Zack is fine. The voice actor for Zack is really, really good. He brings out all the emotions of Zack, and he really makes you feel connected to Zack as a character. So I could really, really appreciate what the voice actor of Zack did, at least for the Japanese dub. I don't know how the English one did, but in terms of music and voice actors, the music specific to Crisis Core is alright. Everything they take from Final Fantasy VII is a banger because, of course, it's Final Fantasy VII. The voice actors, if they're side characters, they're alright, but Zack's voice actor in particular is a real standout, and he's really good. Now, in terms of story, like I said before, Crisis Core is meant to be a prequel to Final Fantasy VII. People will debate whether you should play Final Fantasy VII first or Crisis Core first. In my honest opinion, I don't think it really matters which order you play it in. Either order you play it in, something from one of the games is going to be spoiled for you. So if you play Final Fantasy VII first, pretty much Crisis Core is spoiled and you'll know what happens at the end of Crisis Core. If you play Crisis Core, one of the plot points of Final Fantasy VII is spoiled, but not the entirety of the story or the ending of Final Fantasy VII is spoiled. Like I said, I kind of have like that bias because I already played Final Fantasy VII, so I kind of already knew, but people will hotly debate whether you should play Final Fantasy VII first or Crisis Core first. I'll probably end up in the minority that says it doesn't really matter if you want to play Crisis Core first, that's perfectly fine. I think if anything, considering the remasters are coming out, it'd be fine to play Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII and then roll right into Final Fantasy VII, because Crisis Core really just sets up pretty much for you to pick up the first part of the remaster. So I think it's fine to play Crisis Core before Final Fantasy VII. People will hotly debate that, but in my opinion, it's fine. But all that aside, in terms of the story, Crisis Core is pretty much telling the story of Zack, who is a soldier for Shinra. It's telling his story of going through soldier and his pretty much struggles through what he does through the story. The main overarching story is that they're pursuing a defected soldier called Shinra, who took some troops with them from Shinra and is currently rallying against Shinra and attacking Shinra and pretty much is causing chaos in Midgar. That's pretty much the overarching story. It's kind of confusing at points, and it's not the craziest story in all considerations. Some things I don't really like about the story is the fact that they do this kind of weird melodrama that makes it feel like they're trying to tell like a player in opera. They kind of have all this weird melodrama in it that I don't really like, and as well they have like a lot of weird symbolism in the story. I wasn't too crazy about that, but honestly it's like whatever, because mainly what the story is doing is building Zack's character and Cloud's motivations for when he rolls into Final Fantasy VII. So in terms of the story, I mean, it's alright. Mainly what carries this game though is the characters, specifically a character. In terms of characters, we'll have Sephiroth and Cloud appearing in this game because, you know, it's the prequel to Final Fantasy VII, so of course they gotta be in it. They're decent enough characters, honestly. They don't do anything too crazy, I would say, besides like what they play in their roles in Final Fantasy VII. Obviously parts of like the Final Fantasy VII flashbacks that you would know if you played the original appear in this game. Those can be appreciated when you see them, and obviously that's like the best parts of the story are like the flashback parts that you witnessed in the original Final Fantasy VII. But the characters are all pretty alright, to be honest. I would say that there's only really one main character and the other ones kind of play a side character. Besides Zack, I think all the characters are pretty mediocre. I feel like Cloud and Sephiroth are built up better in Final Fantasy VII than they are in Crisis Core. They play a second role to Zack pretty much throughout the entire story. So their appearance is appreciated, but they really don't do anything crazy in this game, to be honest, besides being the characters that they are. Some of that I might be able to appreciate because I already knew Final Fantasy VII, but in terms of the characters, side characters are alright. The main character here, and pretty much the main carrier of the story and the characters, is Zack. Zack is a crazy character, and honestly he's more personable than Cloud is in Final Fantasy VII. He's a more likable protagonist as well than Cloud is in Final Fantasy VII. Like I said, that might change in the remaster or remake of Final Fantasy VII. Like I said, I haven't played it, but Zack is a really likable character, and all the conflicts he faces through the story really bring out his character and make him really appreciable in terms of like all the struggles he has. And he's a really just likable guy. I mean, he's a fun, jovial type of guy who can be serious when need be, and when all the conflicts happen to him and when everything's happening to him, you can really see his character develop into something. And like I said, the voice actor really helps to build like this kind of goofy, lax, jovial character of Zack. But when the serious stuff starts happening and when he starts facing real conflict and things that put like his morals and motivations into question, he really brings it out. So the voice actor does a great job, and really Zack's character is just really well written. He's a really likable guy. You see him develop as a character and progress as a character, developing from pretty much just a nobody to somebody in Shinra, and then later on facing conflicts that makes him question his motivations and question what he's really doing in the world. Zack is an amazing character, and I really like him. Like I said, I don't know, maybe they did it better in the remake of Final Fantasy VII, but he's a way more likable character than Cloud. And honestly, in terms of the story, you're going to be more or less playing the game for Zack than you are than an actual story for the game. But in terms of stories and characters, the story is alright, I guess. Kind of confusing at points. I wouldn't really say it builds anything to Final Fantasy VII. Really what it builds to Final Fantasy VII is that it builds Cloud's motivations for what he does going into Final Fantasy VII. Other than that, it does have the flashback scenes, so it also builds some of those plot points to Final Fantasy VII. But honest to God, the main reason I play this game is for Zack and Zack's character, because he's really a great character, and honestly he's like one of the stronger characters in the JRPG genre. He's a really enjoyable character, and I absolutely recommend playing this game to at least know his story and like get to know Zack. But in terms of the gameplay is pretty linear. It's a dungeon crawler. You pretty much just crawl through dungeons. It's an action RPG based game. I would say it's very, very linear. At some points, the game lets you free roam Midgar, but it very much limits you on how much you can explore in Midgar. And honestly, this is kind of where I feel the squeeze of it being a PSP game, is that it is very, very limited in scope. Pretty much besides exploring the very limited area of Midgar, and like I said, that's not a lot. You'll pretty much be playing story point to story point through very linear dungeons. And besides like the chapters and the story points, they have something called missions, which are pretty much just playing through side quests. There are a shit ton of missions in this game, I won't lie. And like I said, I only played 55% of them. I had no motivation to play through the rest of them. It gets really tiring after a while playing so many of them, so that I didn't really enjoy it. But the missions are really, really short though, like maybe sometimes like 5 to 10 minutes, if not less. And pretty much you're just playing through really short dungeons and beating through enemies. It's pretty much the same every time. They reuse a lot of dungeons for missions, so it gets really repetitive really fast. If you play this game on normal and play through a lot of the missions, the story chapters are really, really easy. I got to about level 50, I believe, and the story was pretty much just breeze easy. I just shot through the entire story and it was really easy. Now, in terms of like the core gameplay, the game focuses on a dungeon crawling aspect. You'll pretty much be crawling through dungeons, which like I said are very linear, and as well you're just going to be engaging in the combat. Now the combat is action RPG. Pretty much you'll be slashing through enemies. I think Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy 15 did the same combat style, I'm not sure. But the combat is pretty satisfying. Slashing through enemies is very satisfying. The way they show like the visual sparks flying whenever you make contact with an enemy. It's very visually appealing. The sound design does a very good job of making the combat feel very punchy and satisfying. So the combat is actually pretty fun. Besides using like hack and slash elements, you also use materia, kind of like how you did in the previous games. You can craft materia, make it stronger, and then use it in combat. You also have like HP up and MP up materia they can use to build up your character. The materia crafting isn't anything crazy. It's kind of a side point of the game, but as well in the missions, you can unlock more slots for materia, I believe. Otherwise, if I'm wrong about that, you can unlock more item slots. You only really get 4 item slots, and as well, you can't swap out things like weapons. You can only really swap out and add certain attributes like MP and HP up and stuff like that. My major gripe about the gameplay is pretty much the slot machine system that runs throughout every battle. This is a big annoyance for me, pretty much because the level up system is tied to the slot machine system. This is incredibly annoying to me, and I don't know why the hell they did it like that in the original game. I'm not sure why the hell they kept it in Crisis Core Reunion. The fact that your leveling up is tied to a slot machine system is really stupid. Now, how the system works is it pretty much spins, and it expends a certain amount of currency that you earn called SP through battles, and every time it does, it can offer you something like a buff like unlimited MP for a certain amount of time or a limit break attack, and that slot machine system pretty much spins throughout every battle. It's, I guess, a cool system, but it's nothing really noteworthy. Really what it does, it just gives you some buffs throughout the combat, but my big gripe about that system is the fact that your level is tied to that system. That is incredibly annoying. I don't know why they make it that you have to hit a 777 to level up. So pretty much your levels are based on whether or not you hit a 777 when you level up. When you have the proper amount of XP, and the game as well doesn't tell you how much XP you have. So pretty much you're just randomly leveling up throughout the game. You'll never know if you're qualified to level up, and you'll never know when you're going to level up. You just level up randomly when you get the 777s. It is incredibly annoying. I don't know if when you hit the proper amount of XP that it increases your chances of leveling up, but it is still incredibly annoying that your level up is tied to a chance system. And it truly is chance, because I've leveled up quite quickly. Like, I've gained 3 levels in later game quite quickly when I just hit 777. So I think it's purely luck based, and that is quite annoying nonetheless. I really wish that for at least leveling up, they went with just a basic level up system and didn't tie it to the slot machine system. But in terms of gameplay, it was really enjoyable, and the combat is very satisfying. My major gripe though is the fact that that level up system is tied to the slot machine system. I just really wish that they just did a regular ass level up system. The fact that as well they don't really tell you how much XP you have, that's really dumb to me as well. I'll say as well that the side missions are probably going to be annoying to some. They're optional. I will say the story will probably be a bit harder if you choose not to do the side missions. I'd imagine the game would be a lot shorter if you also chose not to do the side missions as well. I put 23 in. You could probably beat the game in 15 if you chose not to do the side missions. But overall, my opinions on Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion, also known as Crisis Core Reunion, is I had a pretty good time with it. I didn't mind that the game was pretty linear. Honestly, I'm fine with linear games, so that was not a big gripe to me. I will say that really my only big complaint about this game is that the story is mediocre, the music that's specific to Crisis Core is pretty mediocre, and that level up system just really kills me. Otherwise, I really love the character of Zack. I really enjoyed the music that is remastered from Final Fantasy VII, and the combat system is just really satisfying. Like slashing an enemy and just sparks flying everywhere when you just beat the fuck out of them is so satisfying. I just really enjoyed my time overall with this game. It made me want to play the Final Fantasy remake, or at least the original Final Fantasy VII, so I think it did its part. But I would recommend this game if you're a Final Fantasy VII fan. Obviously, it's good for you. If you want an action RPG, I could also recommend this game to you because I think it's a really satisfying and fun ARPG as well. Like I said, I don't think the order of which you play the Final Fantasy VII games really matters. If you want to jump into Crisis Core and then play the remaster, I think that's fine. Some people will argue that. I would say it's perfectly fine. I think it rolls probably better into the remaster than it would the original Final Fantasy VII, just because I think this game was made somewhat with the remake in mind. But I would say, yeah, for $50 or even on discount, this is a pretty good game. And it's short enough to where it won't take up too much of your time, and it's pretty enjoyable as well. But thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I'll see you. Stay chill.